Tune in to Arise, the new wave media experience with LaTonya Smiley and HR. Arise for a strong dose of love, joy, laughter, and information for healthy living.
Well, we're living in our purpose because God put us on this earth. Our purpose on this earth is to encourage each other. I often wonder why there are so many people, but that is the way God operates. We are an encouragement to some people who are discouraged from feeling that they can succeed. And success only comes by failure. A certain amount of failure leads to success. The attitude is, I am not going to quit. I'm going to stick it out until the end.
Welcome to Arise. We have Joseph Smith, a chaplain in Atlanta, with us today to talk to us about coping with grief, especially during COVID-19. Welcome to the show, Joseph.
Hello. How are you?
Hello. Are you still social distancing?
Absolutely.
Since the restrictions have been lifted?
Yes, absolutely. We have to continue to do that. It's not a point in time where we are ready as a society to not social distance. So yeah, we have to give each other 6 feet. Absolutely.
I know I am. I the other day I did take a step, and I did a takeout. I went to a restaurant. I did a takeout. That was a lot for me, and I didn't enjoy the food. I don't know. It was psychological.
Right.
I don't know. But the food just didn't taste the same. So I said, I'm just going to wait. I think I'm just going to give myself a year, get over this, and just see how it goes.
Absolutely. I think
to feel more comfortable.
That's a great frame.
So how does it look? I'm sorry, you were saying something, Joseph?
That's a great frame of mind to think about. So I don't know if we need a year, but we definitely need more time. So.
Yeah, but how is it looking in the hospital from the chaplain perspective?
Okay. Well, it's an interesting time right now because a couple weeks ago, when everything was really at its highest, there were many deaths at the hospital where I work, and I'm sure around the country as well. But in the hospital where I work, I'll kind of give you a breakdown of how everything goes. So there are times when the family members, us as chaplains, when we go into the room, we go into a room on a normal daily basis, and we're hugging people, and we're praising God with people, and we're talking to people and providing whatever kind of support we can. But in a time like this, we can't. So only people that can actually go into the rooms now for the patients are the staff, which are the doctors and the nurses. So we can't even go into the rooms right now. So what happens is if a patient is intubated right now, we can't even talk to them. We can maybe talk to the family, on the phone or something like that. But if they're able to talk, they have a baby monitor that's set up for one on the inside of the room and one on the outside of the room for us to be able to have the conversation. So that's what we were seeing during that time. So we had to find different ways to provide care for patients during this time. Now, the hard part about it is this: when a patient was dying or actively dying, what the hospital where I work, where they set up was something like what we're doing right now with the Zoom call. We would get all the family members on Zoom, 5 family members, 10 family members or whatever, and they would put them on a Zoom call, and then they would take a tablet or a device and put it into the room so the family members could see the patient. And this is how they would see their family members die, on a Zoom call, on a phone, or through a tablet, and you're actually just seeing your family members. So at that time, they would allow 2 family members to come into the hospital. The family member will come into the hospital, they will put on their PPE, go into the room for 15, 20 minutes, spend time with the family member. They took the PPE off, and they were escorted out of the hospital once the meeting was over.
So this is why I feel like this is a timely topic right now, especially during the COVID-19, because the funeral arrangements and the way we usually celebrate life culturally, personally, has changed. Absolutely. And so on top of grieving, you also have to deal with the whole way of doing your whole ritual of your way of doing funerals and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
Having to deal with that also. So let's just talk about grief. What is grief?
That's a great question, because when I think about grief, of course, there's a dictionary definition, which is keen mental suffering or distress over affliction or loss, sharp sorrow or painful or regret. But I think even the dictionary definition can't really describe how horrible grief, death, and
It
everything that's
goes
going on
deeper.
is.
It goes deeper than that.
Way deeper than that. So
Right.
as I think about grief
Mm-hmm.
myself, I think about there are so many different reactions, so many different ways that people grieve, so many different ways that people attune to what's going on in their own personal life, and from a cultural standpoint. So, and I'll give you an example of grief. A couple years ago, my wife's mother passed away, and when she passed away, what I was trying to do was help her through the grieving process, and by what I was trying to do to help her was to have her sit down, right? So I said, babe, hey, why don't you come over and sit down? Why don't you come over and sit down? She didn't want to sit down. She wanted to walk. She wanted to do the things that she wanted to do, and it was her way of grieving. And I was trying to make my way of grieving, her way of grieving, right? So we have to let people
Right.
understand that there's different ways to grieve. There's different ways to process grieving, but also there's different. Some people grieve standing up. Some people grieve, sitting down. Some people grieve crying. So many different
Right.
ways. And even in the hospital setting, we see that in so many ways as well. So people grieve differently. People get over things differently. And sometimes you just have to let people be who they are and grieve the way they want to grieve, as long as they're not hurting themselves or hurting someone else.
Let's go through some myths first before we go through the whole process of grieving. And you're just going to explain that whole process of
Sure.
grieving. Okay. Let's do myth 1. The pain will go away faster if you ignore it.
That's a big no. So that's not
Yes.
true. You can't ignore it. There are so many times that people, they need actual counseling. They need somebody that they can talk to. They need somebody that they can sit down and go through a process with to grieve, because just avoiding it actually is going to make it worse. And it doesn't just make it worse for that person, it makes it worse for the person in their body and their emotions and their spirit, and so many other different ways that if you ignore it, all it's going to do is make that person's life worse, and possibly people that's around them, and even the job, their home life, like I say, the spiritual life. And so to just believe that it's okay just to say that is going to go away, it rarely happens. That's my belief.
Yeah. And the next one is, it is important to be strong in the face of loss.
That's that's another misnomer, because, I believe it's strength in knowing that it's okay to cry, or it's okay to grieve. It's okay to allow those different parts of us to be exposed, even as a man, because a lot of times men think, we have to be strong, and we have to be strong for our wives, and we have to be strong for our families, and all that type of stuff. And it's not correct, because a lot of times us not grieving and doing the things that we need to do, it causes tension within our bodies. I believe that there are people who go through a daily ritual of not grieving, which totally affects their health. It affects the way of life. It affects their thinking. And a lot of times it gets them to do certain things like drinking and drugs and things that they might not normally do, or normally do, to a severe point. And they think it helps them to cope, but it really doesn't, because the strength that they need. And I tell people several times in the hospital, I believe there are strength in tears. Not
Yes.
saying that you have to, cry a river. We're not talking about nothing like that, but there's strength in being able to say, hey, it's okay to allow this process to go through my body so I can release it.
Right. It is very important. But you kind of went into the next myth, and that is, if you don't cry, it means you aren't sorry.
Right. So, the loss itself is hard enough, because some people, many people believe that, we sit in the hospital all the time. Hey, look, do whatever you can to allow my family member to stay alive, even if they have to be on a ventilator, even if they have to, so when you lose somebody, of course you're grieving, you're not understanding why they died. Hey, God, why'd you, if someone who believes in God, why'd you take my family member away from me? So you're believing that the person still should be here, but then you have to get into the reality that the person is gone. So have enough strength and resolve
Right.
to know that it's okay to let that person go.
Yeah. Grieving should last about a year. And you discussed that earlier.
Yeah, there's no time limit on grieving. Some people, get over things, what people would say fairly quickly, which would be 30 days, 60 days. But some people take years to get over a family member that they lost, a husband or a wife that they lost, a mate, somebody that they've been in a relationship for a long period of time, or just, some relationships, they come quick and they last throughout a lifetime. And, you can't just put a time limit on when and how long somebody should grieve. Now, I do think it's unhealthy if someone is grieving for years and years. And like, say if you have, like say if somebody died and they have a room full of their things and that type of thing. I don't know how healthy that is, and to keep all of those, things around a full room of, the bedroom, the clothes, all that type of stuff. So there's, again, the need for counseling when it comes to that. So, people, do go to extremes, but something healthy is there's no real time limit on it.
Joseph. So Joseph, how would someone know that he or she is grieving?
That's a good question. I believe that there are times when people do things outside of their norm that might be grieving. If you know somebody who normally just, is an occasional drinker and they're starting to drink more heavily on a regular basis, that could be grieving. If you know someone that's in school, like if they're in college or a high school student and they're normally getting A's and B's and they're now starting to get C's and, lower grades and they're acting up in school, that could be grieving. If someone who, and a lot of people, they get, pain in their body and that type of thing. So it's a difference between that, some pain that could be in their body compared to somebody that's grieving. But anyone who's doing anything outside of their norm, I believe that that's grieving or could be a symptom of grief. And they should have someone, clinically that's able to give them counseling or some information that can help them to process what they're going through. Yeah, so I firmly believe that anyone who is out of their norm or their normal habits is someone that might be dealing with grief, and if that's the case, they need to get some help, some person that is a counselor, a grief counselor, a grief specialist. There's different types of people that can help people out. If it's somebody who's in high school and they're getting good grades and they're not having the same grades that they were having or the same type of attitude, mood swings, those types of things, I believe that that's someone who might need help if they're grieving something. If you have loss in your family where it comes to a family member or a pet, or someone who may be moving constantly, so it's a variety of things that would show that somebody have signs of grief and they really truly need some help.
Okay, so to better understand this, let's go through the whole process, theoretically, what people go through, but not necessarily in that order. Like denial, you can take it on from there. Denial.
Absolutely. So anybody who's denying that they're grieving, that process is definitely unhealthy. That is something that definitely needs to get checked. Denial is probably one of the biggest symptoms that I see even in the hospital setting. And again, as chaplains, we're not necessarily counselors, but we definitely report back to the staff on different things that we hear, different things that we see. And if we can, whatever help we can be, because we're essential staff as well, and we are a part of the medical team. So being a part of the medical team, we have the benefit of being able to help the medical team diagnose people where we don't do diagnosis, but all we do is we just say, hey, look, this is what I see. This is what I hear. This is what I understand. And this person is in denial, and maybe psych consultation is apropos in in that situation. So denial is definitely a big one, you know, because there are a lot of people that deny, you know, that they need to lose weight, or they deny that they are grieving. They deny these different things. So so yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest ones that I see, especially in the hospital setting.
And
Oh,
anger.
absolutely. So, you know, people lash out different ways, cursing, violence, violence against themselves, violence against other people. I've seen people in the hospital who have a family member that died, and they're walking down the halls, and they're banging on the walls, they're throwing cell phones, they're grabbing chairs and kicking it, they're cursing at the staff, all these different things that you
Right.
see, and you know that they're grieving, but there's definitely a way to grieve. And in the hospital, if you act like that, they will put you out. And if you do something, that's rash enough, they will actually even arrest you. So,
So even in the hospital, and as a chaplain, if you see someone reacting like that because they just got bad news about a loved
mhm,
one,
mhm,
passing. So even in that, you're saying there's a healthy way to
right.
respond and an unhealthy way.
Absolutely, because that the way that you respond is not just affecting you or that person; it's affecting those around them. That's affecting the other family members that's there. That's affecting staff. And it's not always death, because you get people who receive bad information or a bad diagnosis. Hey, somebody might have found out they have cancer. Some people find out that they have a heart problem that can't be reversed or can't be fixed. So it's not just a death that's grieving. It's also when somebody receives some sort of bad news or something that's different than what they expected.
I know also you have people who who feel like they feel guilty, as if I think a lot of time people get stuck right there at the guilty part. Maybe I didn't do enough, or maybe if I had, maybe if I had been there, or if I had prayed the right prayer, especially with Christians,
Right.
this would have never happened. Mhm.
Absolutely. So you get people that say, you know what, they just died, and I didn't get a chance to talk to them before they died. Or
Mhm.
in the situation now with COVID, well, he was in the hospital and I didn't get a chance to see him before he died, and they feel guilty about that. Or they say, well, I don't, we didn't get him to the hospital fast enough, or that person, I could have helped them with their diet or whatever. And if I would have did that, then they probably wouldn't have died. So we can't guilt ourselves into those feelings. We have to be able to process
Mhm.
those things and allow ourselves to know that, even if that was the case, it's going to be all right. And we have to allow forgiveness to set in. Jesus, and God said, that he forgave the world for all of our sins. Jesus went to the cross for our sins. But at the same time, there's times when we have to forgive ourselves for the things that we don't do, right? So if we don't forgive
Right.
ourselves, then a lot of times we can't walk in the fullness that God has called and who God has called us to be. So we have to know that, God forgave the world of all our sins and iniquities, but we also have to forgive ourselves and forgive others when these situations come up, because it's COVID now and it's a grieving period now, but a lot of people say, hey, we're either in a storm, we're coming out of a storm, or we're going into a storm. So it's going to be other things that's going to come up.
Right.
So the grieving process it's just not now. We have to look at whatever's going to happen in the future and know that when we're grieving, it makes it worse on our minds, on our bodies, on our spirits. And also it makes it worse in our connection with God when we don't forgive and allow these things to be removed from our spirit.
What has helped me in the past is that I realize, of course, it's easier said than done. But one thing keeps everything in perspective for me is understanding that as individuals, we're placed here, and we all have our own journey that God has placed us
Absolutely.
on. And so we are pretty much on our path of our
Mhm.
journey. We're going to pass by people who are going to be there in our lives, or we're going to, along our path, we're going to be in other people's lives, and that's including our family members, friends, loved ones. But even in that, you have to keep in perspective that although, like, we are cousins, but you don't belong to me,
Right.
you belong to God.
Absolutely.
You belong to your maker.
Right.
And you have your own journey. I have my own journey. And at the end of our journey, that's the last say. God has the last say for your journey. And I kind of like, for me, Joseph, that has helped me. That has kept me centered in knowing that everyone has their journey.
Right.
And any decision that a person makes, that's their journey. And you, as people, it should help us be more loving of others, be more supporting of others, helping others more, not hindering, but helping.
Amen.
And if we keep that in perspective, and when people come in our path, or when, our loved ones, our family members, friends, even a stranger come in our path, or we come in their path, if something should happen, we know within our heart, I did right by that person. I was there. I helped that person along their journey.
Amen. Amen. And along with that, and because that's a great thought, along with that, there's, different ways that can help people to, I believe, to decrease their grief and decrease things that they might be going through. Of course, there's prayer, because, we're talking about it from a Christian biblical perspective. So there's prayer, there's intercession. There is a time of fasting. There is times where, people can meditate, and there's different types of meditation that people can, not medication. There's different types of meditation.
Not medication.
No, stay away from the medication. There are different types of meditation that people can do that help them to, decrease, with your breathing, slow your breathing down. You can do different types of meditation that can help. But also, one of the things that we try to do as chaplains is we try to figure out ways to promote wellness, not just spiritual wellness, but emotional wellness and physical wellness as well, right? And one of the ways that we found out is to be able to take the time that we have and insert more time in our lives to be able to have time to be able to get away and to be able to process things. So you have so many people doing this COVID right now that's taking this time that at first they was like, okay, cool, I might have a day off, or I might have this little time away. Right. But you have so many people that's upset about not being able to go to work. Why don't they take this time to process and know that once his grind starts again, that they're going to be mad about being on 285. They're going to be mad about being on 20 and 75, highways trying to get to work and going back and forth. Use this time productively to read, to get your house cleaned up, not just, in the physical, get your house cleaned up, but get your spiritual house together, right? Your spiritual mind and your spiritual body together. Use this time to do all these different things, because I believe that it's helpful. So when the time comes when we need to grieve, that it won't be so detrimental to our life, and it won't be so negative and so hard and so gut wrenching. So just use these times right here to prepare for what's coming up, because again, there's going to be something else that's going to come in the future, and we have to be ready for it, regardless of what we think. There's going to be loss, as we get older, people die, even people that's close to us, so we have to be ready for these different things. And the only way to do it is,
and the point is not for every calamity or trauma that happens, to not allow that to set you back every time there is a calamity or some sorrowful event occurring, in your life.
Absolutely.
So we kind of short on time. So we're going to take this time to help people to move forward.
Okay.
How can I move forward, Joseph? How can I get out of this rut that I am in?
Okay.
How?
Yeah, I think some of the things I just mentioned, definitely meditation. Sometimes it's a change. It's a change in your job. Sometimes jobs are stressful and they cause a lot of grief. It could be changing jobs. It could be spending more time with family, doing things that allow people to have some fun. Even during this COVID right now, one of the things that my wife and I did this past weekend, we did what we call spiritual drive-bys. So what we did was we got some little cards, and we wrote on the cards and said, I miss you and I love you. And we went to our apostles' church, the apostle, we went to his home, went up to the door, hey, we love you. And then we jumped back in the car and we left. And then we went to the senior pastor's house, and then we went to a couple other people, and we just did these little.
Talk about my house.
I know, and I should have, and I'm sorry, I apologize for that. And so we're about to get you this weekend. And so we did these little spiritual drive-bys, and I went down to Warner Robins and saw my mother for about 15 minutes, and we just, we not staying quick. We just wanted to say hello. We had a mask on and everything. We just did a little drive-by and left. So, there's different ways that people can do things to reduce stress, reduce grief, and just know that, trouble don't last always. It right. Truly doesn't. And when you believe, when you believe in Jesus, no matter what happens, he has us every step of the way.
Right. Thank you, Joseph, for coming on the show and sharing this information. And hopefully, prayerfully, people are going to listen to this and know how to move forward, and also know how to help a loved one or a friend that's actually grieving and being able to identify those symptoms. Again, you all have been watching Arise. I want you all to live, love, and forgive. Peace.
People need to wake up. This is not over. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, lady, move back. Lady, move back. Lady, move back so I can live and you can live. Yeah, man, move back. Man, move back. Man, move back so I can live and you can live. Hey, this is a different time, now a new norm. I know God, he will get us through this crazy storm. Some people don't get it, better wake up fast. We need to focus right now for this virus to pass. How it spread so fast, somebody lying. We shedding tears, people dying and families crying. We need answers quick, no time for division. Saving lives, protecting people should be the only mission. First responders are tired and they need rest. Need more equipment to calm the unrest. Ventilators, masks, hospitals at their brink. People in their fields cause they can't go to a bar and get a drink. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, lady, move back. Lady, move back. Lady, move back so I can live and you can live. Yeah, man, move back. Man, move back. Man, move back so I can live and you can live. Hey, global pandemic, losing people every day. People losing jobs, need help quick, yeah, right away. Many didn't believe until a virus hit home. People disinfect your hands and heart, yo, we need shalom. Global assassination, weed out with vaccination. Science project for the bag, yeah, man-made manipulation. This was predicted, calculated for casualties. Some churches tried to stay open, taking this casually. CEOs making millions but won't bless their staff. The last will be first and the first will be last. People may get sick and die, but the evil ones will see defeat. I wanna live, so give me 6 feet. Hey, give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, lady, move back. Lady, move back. Lady, move back so I can live and you can live. Yeah, man, move back. Man, move back. Man, move back so I can live and you can live. Hey, I want to thank each and every first responder around the world. All the doctors, the nurses, police, military, emergency workers, chaplains, all essential workers. Those behind the scenes in the hospital like the food service workers, environmental services, those who clean the bedrooms after the COVID patients leave the room. All the companies and entertainers and private citizens who have stepped up to assist during the pandemic, and all those around the world who together do a great work. Also, I want to thank and give a big shout out to the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, Keisha Lance Bottoms, for her leadership. This has been a PSA, a pandemic service announcement from JS3 and Luke G. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet. Give me 6 feet so I can live and you can live. Hey, lady, move back. Lady, move back. Lady, move back so I can live and you can live. Yeah, man, move back. Man, move back. Man, move back so I can live and you can live. Hey.
You have been listening to Arise with LaTonya Smiley and HR. Contact us at AriseShow2020@gmail.com.
And then once the end has come about, then you turn around and you look at all your failures and see that you are successful. So our purpose is to be successful, but it's not going to be easy. It's a step-by-step process. Once the process is completed, either your hands are raised in your endeavors, or even if you're at your side, you can still look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the fact that you have succeeded and finished until the end.
Contact us at AriseShow2020@gmail.com.